We've come to a point in our tutorials where we can discuss the concept of pixels in Photoshop as opposed to vectors, for example, in Illustrator. Now, the word pixel is a short form of two words, picture element, and pixels are basically the elements that make up our digital pictures. So when looking at a digital photograph on the screen, even though it looks like a normal photograph for us and we can make out the objects clearly, like the flowers that you see on the screen, what we're really seeing is a massive collection of colored squares. Let me zoom in and show you what I mean. If I zoom in, the more I zoom in, the more you start seeing the colored squares. So every little square that you see here is a pixel. I've zoomed into a pink section. Let me zoom into a section where there are several colors so that you see a distinction. Okay, so here you can see the colored squares of green. Here you can see the colored squares of very light green, and then here is dark green again. So basically what we're really seeing is a massive collection of colored squares, even though our mind thinks that it's a real normal photo. In fact, these little squares next to one another, on top of one another, above and below each other, collectively form the image, the final image that we see. And the thing is that these squares are too small for our eyes to see them individually. But when placed next to one another, above and below each other, they form a complete image. So this image, for example, is an image of tulips that I found online, but it's really actually an image of tulips. Is it really an image of tulips? If I zoom in again, let me zoom in this section here. Do you still think it's an image of tulips? What we see are just dots, if you will. The right word is squares, little tiny colored squares. These squares that you see are the pixels, and that's what Photoshop understands. So Photoshop doesn't really understand that these are tulips or that the previous image was that of the actress Cate Blanchett. All Photoshop understands are pixels. It understands little squares that are next to one another and above and below each other, little colored squares. And the interesting thing about these little pixels is that each individual pixel uses exactly one color. So if I zoom in, maybe we might think that one of these pixels or some of them are made up of two colors. Let me zoom in even more. If we look here, we might think, oh, this is light pink, but the edge may have some darker pink. I'm moving to show you a different section of the image. We might think that this pixel is, a pink, but then it's starting to get some shades of darker pink on its edge. That's just a visual trick. It's not real because every individual pixel has only one unique color and not more. And it's the variations in color and brightness values of the individual pixels which give us what we see as image detail in our images. So just remember that every time you're using your digital camera, you're scanning an image, whatever image you see on your computer screen, that's a digital image that is made up of a massive collection of pixels or colored squares.